Well, I want to make a video about driving, and I actually just tried to make one. I got 8 minutes into it and accidentally hit the wrong button. So here we go, we're going to start all over. When I talk about driving, I'm talking about driving in the United States. So if you're not in the US or familiar with the US, things might be different in your country. I haven't driven outside of the US except for a very short time when I visited Canada as a teenager, and we're talking less than a day, and it didn't go well for me. It didn't go well at all. Unfortunately, there were no accidents, but it was an experience I'm glad I haven't repeated. But anyway, driving in the US. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I have had the opportunity to drive professionally. I have driven trucks and large trucks. When I say large trucks, I mean tractor trailer on a professional basis. So even though that doesn't make me a better driver, I have had the experience of driving a lot more and in a lot of different conditions and ways than a lot of other people. So I have some experience that a lot of drivers may not have to fall back on. So I do know a little bit about what I'm saying. Now, my first biggest pet peeve, we're only going to have 3 here. My first biggest pet peeve is not using your headlights, most especially in inclement weather. And when I say inclement weather, I mean anything that isn't perfect. If it's not a bright, sunny day.
A new message has arrived.
And anybody that knows that sound knows what it is. And it validates that I'm a professional driver. Anyway, inclement weather is when the weather isn't perfect, when the situation isn't perfect. And you're probably better off driving with your headlights on all the time, but in inclement weather, it's especially important. And inclement means when it's raining, when it's dark out or getting dark, doesn't even have to be completely dark, when it's snowing, and most especially in the fog. Now you may say to yourself, why do I have to drive with my headlights on? And I was riding in a vehicle once with a professional driver, and it was very disappointing because it was about dusk, it was twilight, and most of the other vehicles had their headlights on. And to me, when you look around and you see another vehicle with its headlights on, it automatically, in my mind, makes me think, oh, I can see that vehicle easier. It's just something that crosses my mind. At which point, I automatically think, are my headlights on? And I double check, because I double check a lot of things as I'm driving. And I asked the driver, why don't you have your headlights on? And he said to me, oh, I can see just fine. I don't need my headlights on. But driving is one of the biggest communal activities we engage in as people, if not the biggest. And it's really important to be respectful because there are so many people engaging in this activity at the same time. If it was just you driving down the road and nothing else, and you wanted to be an idiot and not care about anybody else because there's nobody else around, that's one thing. But when there are other people engaging in the same activity, they rely on you to do the right thing. And having your headlights on isn't just for you. When you think it is, that's a very closed-minded and ignorant point of view. And when I say ignorant, that's not an insult, because we're all ignorant of a ton of things. Until we learn something, we don't know it. And if we don't know it, we're ignorant. It's that simple. So I was really disappointed with this driver because he's a professional. And I said to him, I said, you know, having your headlights on isn't just about you. It allows other drivers to see you. And when I'm driving down the road and I want to switch lanes, especially in the rain, if there's a car in the lane next to me that I want to move over into, and it's a grayish color, it can be next to impossible to see that vehicle in the rain unless it has its lights on, and most especially its headlights. Some people are like, oh, well, I got my running lights on, I'm so cool. No, you're not cool unless you're doing the right thing. So put your headlights on, because it's respectful to other drivers. It makes it easier for them to see you. And you want to be respectful when you're engaging in an activity where people can be killed. And unfortunately, if things go wrong when people are driving, that's a side effect that can easily happen. Now, my second pet peeve, and we're only going to do 3. My second pet peeve is when people won't use their turn signal or don't. And quite a few years ago, I asked another driver, and he wasn't a professional driver, at least it didn't appear to be because he was driving a car. But I asked him, why didn't you use your turn signal back there? And he was like, oh, turn signals don't matter. You can see my brake lights. You know I'm slowing down. It doesn't matter if I'm turning. You figure it out. That's another very selfish, closed-minded point of view. Turn signals matter. And I was talking to a professional driver once, and he told me that when he went through truck driving school, one of his teachers made a statement about turn signals, and it was pretty simple, but it's pretty profound. Don't signal what you're doing. Signal your intention. Now, if you think about that, that's really important. Because, yeah, you can be changing lanes and then all of a sudden think, oh, I guess I'll put my signal on. I'm halfway into the other lane now. And that's one thing. Or you can be almost stopped and about ready to turn right onto a side street and then say, oh, this guy coming up behind me pretty fast, maybe I should put my turn signal on. But that's signaling what you're doing. And what you want to do is signal your intention. That lets other drivers see what, once it's safe and appropriate to do so, you have plans to do. And then they can react based on what they know your desire is. Now, unfortunately for me, a lot of times when I put my signal on, let's say I'm driving in the right lane, because a lot of times when you're a professional driver, you're supposed to be in the right lane. So let's say I put my signal on to move over to the left. Whether there's 2 lanes or 3 lanes on the interstate, it doesn't matter. Unfortunately, a lot of other drivers seem to think that when I put my left turn signal on, that means, oh, I should speed up so I should get past this guy before he gets over here. Really? Really? That's your goal in life. You didn't want to pass me a minute ago, but because my signal came on, now all of a sudden you want to jam on the accelerator and get past me. Or even worse, somebody's behind me, and they've been following me for 5, 10, 20 miles. I put my left signal on, and I move over, and for absolutely no reason other than, I don't know, they want to, they speed up and pass me on the right. But the thing is, there's a reason that I'm moving over. So suddenly they put themselves in a position when they pass me in the lane that I just exited, where they're making it difficult for somebody that's trying to merge onto the interstate. Or there's a vehicle on the shoulder in front of me, whether it's a cop car or just a vehicle pulled over or construction, and they are suddenly in the lane right next to that vehicle, going probably faster than they should for no reason, and that makes it unsafe. So don't just signal your intention. Be respectful of why turn signals exist. Be respectful of why other people might be using their turn signal as well. So, turn signals matter for a lot of reasons. My third pet peeve, third issue that I have is merging. Now, if you're in a lane that you know for whatever reason is going to end, whether you're on an on-ramp or whether there's construction ahead and the lane is coming to an end, or the lane just happens to end for whatever reason, that's the way the road is built, and you need to merge over. I don't understand why people find it necessary to speed past everybody else that's in the lane they have to merge to and try to force their way over at the last minute. Now, there's 2 points of view on merging. As soon as you know you got to merge, you should merge. Or you wait until the lane is basically ended and merge over at the final point. I don't think it really matters which one you do, with one exception. You have to pay attention here now, because it doesn't matter where you merge as long as you're not intentionally passing people. As long as you're not going faster than the people in the lane you have to merge into to do it. And I gave an example once of how this would work in real life. Let's say you're at a store, and I used Walmart as an example, but basically any store where there's a cash register and there might be a line. Now you wanna get up to the cash register, whether you're buying something or whatever, but when you get up there, you see that there's a line of people. So what do? Do you take your cart and force your way in right behind the person that's currently paying for something or checking out, and the person that's waiting in line behind them? Do you just force your way in? No, of course not. You go to the end of the line, and you might complain, and you might bitch, and you might be mad, and that's perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with that. We all hate waiting. But why don't you go to the front of the line and force your way in, like a lot of people seem to think is important to do when they're driving down the road? It's because if you're in a store, you don't have the anonymity that a vehicle gives you. You're behind metal and glass, and you're not dealing with other people on a one-on-one basis. And when you have to deal with other people on a one-on-one basis, if you're in a store, you wouldn't be a complete selfish jerk and cut people off. You wouldn't go to the middle of the line and try to force your way in. You wouldn't even consider that as an option, because you wouldn't think it's the right thing to do, because you're dealing with people face to face. So you wouldn't consider that. But when you're driving, somehow being behind metal and glass and separated by distance and space, and being able to just speed past someone and flip them off, makes you feel like it's okay to be completely disrespectful and not care about other people and try to force your way in front of them. So when you come to a merge point or situation, you should slow down to the speed of the vehicles in the lane you have to merge into. And whether you merge over right away, or whether you wait until the end, as long as you're not passing other vehicles to try to cut in front of them that have already been there and are waiting in line like good little boys and girls, then you're not doing anything wrong. And that's why I say it doesn't matter where you merge. Where the merge point is doesn't matter. It's whether you intentionally try to cut other people off when you do merge. That's what matters. And again, it's all about respect. Just because you're not dealing with people face to face, one-on-one, doesn't mean you shouldn't be respectful. Now, I just want to add a couple final thoughts, just random thoughts about driving. I know that there's this big push about no texting while you're driving, and that makes a lot of sense. You know, laws are made to try to protect people. And when enough people do enough things over and over repetitively that cause people injury or death, they make laws to try to stop it. So, in that regard, it's perfectly understandable that they have laws against texting while driving. But is it just me, or aren't billboards just huge text messages? And why in the world is it okay to have huge billboards that you allow and expect drivers to read, but you don't want them to text and drive? You start with a small situation that eventually develops into something else, and you don't even realize how some of the actions that you're making create follow-up actions. Billboards have gone from just a big ad for something to having lots of text, which drivers have to focus on if they actually read, to nowadays it seems like a lot of billboards have half-naked women, which clearly, for the most part, is an attempt to get the attention of the male part of our species. Or if you're attracted to women, then the female part of the species. But aside from the fact that I just think that's stupid to have a half-naked woman as your drawing point for a car dealership, how can you try to focus on drawing the attention of someone driving down the road and say that that's all right? That doesn't make any sense at all. Now, because I am a professional driver, I want to touch on this. I know people that don't drive large trucks quite often are afraid of large trucks. And for a lot of reason, I can totally understand why. If there's an accident that involves a large truck, you can be guaranteed that there will be a lot more damage and potential injury than if it didn't involve a large truck, if that same accident was two smaller vehicles. So the potential for a large truck accident to cause more damage is pretty obvious. So I can understand why drivers can be scared of large trucks. But I've had the opportunity to be around other truck drivers. And I've met a lot of truck drivers that are significantly more knowledgeable and more skilled than I am. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. Some drivers are better. Some drivers know more. One thing I've always said is that I'm not mechanically inclined. I'm not a mechanic. If my truck breaks down, I don't know how to fix it. My company calls a mechanic, unless it's something really simple. The same goes for a car, too. I'm not a mechanic, and I'm not mechanically inclined. There's nothing wrong with that. In that regard, I'm ignorant. And that's fine. But that doesn't make me a bad driver. But unlike a lot of professional drivers that sit around and say, oh, I'm a professional driver, I'm better. And in case you didn't know it, they call people that drive regular vehicles four-wheelers because they don't have 18 wheels, they have 4 in most cases. And they're like, oh, four-wheelers are always the cause of all the problems. And of course, four-wheelers are always like, oh, the truck drivers are always the cause of all the problems. But that's not true. In either case, it's not true. What matters isn't whether you drive a truck or whether you don't, whether you're a professional or whether you're not, whether you have 10 years of experience or you just started driving yesterday. These things don't matter. What matters is how you drive. Are you safe? Are you respectful? Do you follow the rules? Those things matter. It's not who you are that matters. It's what you do. So, if there's anything that you could take away from this video, I hope that somebody somewhere realizes that as a communal activity, being respectful to each other while driving can help save lives. It can help prevent accidents. It can help make driving better for everyone. So, thank you for watching. I'm sorry this video is so long, but driving is and has been a big issue for me in my life. So I just wanted to finally make a video and share. There's a lot of other things I could complain about, but we'll leave it at that. It's getting close to the holiday, so I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, then whatever you do celebrate, I hope you have a happy holiday. Thanks for watching.